Hello, and welcome back to the Video Essay Podcast. I'm your host, Will DeGravio. On today's show, I am so thrilled to be joined by Alice Lenay, who is the performer and researcher behind the work Twisties. Now, the conversation that you're about to hear with Alice was originally recorded as part of my failed attempt to revive recycled screenings, which was a kind of a curated screening platform that was a partner to the show. We recorded the conversation earlier this year, but just for various reasons was not able to get recycled screenings back up and off the ground. But I did not want to have this fantastic conversation with Alice go to waste. So here it is. I mentioned that because, the goal with the recycled screenings conversations was to record an interview that was designed to play after someone had watched the work. So that just kind of informs my conversation with Alice. We're kind of assuming that you've already watched Twisties. But luckily, since then, Twisties, which she also made with Théophile Gay-Mazas, who does the editing, the voiceover, and the stage setting, a version of the performance has been published via NECSUS. So you can watch in the link below, and I would, of course, highly encourage you to do so. The work is, as I mentioned, a live performance that Alice has done throughout Europe and perhaps elsewhere by this point, wearing a green screen suit and uses the zoom function to project an image onto herself of Kerri Strug's iconic Olympic performance. So we get into the creation of this piece, what it's like performing and quite literally embodying the found image, and a whole lot more. It is also a fitting episode to share that the podcast is partnering for the third time with the Kerri Comes Home Festival. It's a film festival that occurs every other year in Bristol in the United Kingdom, in the hometown of Mr. Cary Grant. This year we are accepting submissions of video essays and 1-minute Pecha Kucha videos around the theme of acrobatics. So you can find more information on how to submit a video in the description of this podcast. As always, you can learn more about the Video Essay Podcast by visiting our website, thevideoessay.com, and finding us on relevant social media channels. And I would highly encourage you to please subscribe to our YouTube page. And now, here's my conversation on Twisties with Alice Lenay. All right, I'm so pleased to be joined here by Alice Lenay, a researcher and artist, coming to us via Zoom from Paris. Alice, it's who I had the pleasure of meeting in person in November, I guess, October sometime. Yes, at that wonderful conference organized at Lucerne School of Art and Design, in the works. So, Alice, so good to be seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
And at that conference, you screened, performed, discussed the work we're going to be talking about here. And I can't wait to get into it. But first, I'd be curious, can you just give us a general introduction to kind of who you are and the artistic and scholarly and, background and interest? What brought you to this project?
Okay. Well, I did a PhD in 2020 on faces and screens and how we can meet with each other through our screens. And I tried to develop kind of exploration of these devices that are all around us right now. I could translate with cami screen, cam écran in French. Cami screen, it's just like our computers, just like the devices that we're using right now, our phones, and really any other kind of screens and cameras that are connected together, and how this kind of devices allow us to meet in different ways, and how does it shape our way of feeling with each other. So weirdly, I finished my PhD during the COVID time, and we were online and discussing with directly performing the subject that I was researching on. So that was interesting. So I did this PhD using theory, but also practice. So I developed some films. One film called Dear Hacker, who had a kind of a bit of a run between different festivals, and it was made on Zoom with faces talking to each other. So that was the kind of research that I tried to do, investigating the question I have through practice and theory. And now I continue to do this kind of work. I'm working in the University of Paris 8, Vincennes-Saint-Denis. It's a university in Paris, and yeah, I'm trying to continue this theory and practice research, focused on Camille screen, focused on, how to be with images of others. Really, this is a general idea of my research right now.
Wow, it's so incredible that you were researching Zoom screens and these kinds of things, and then the whole world entered into it. So Zoom is obviously we'll get to it, is a key facet of Twisties. But I'm wondering, what was it like for you to kind of be artistically working and theoretically working with Zoom, and then to have the kind of the whole world engage in it and talk about it? Like, what was that experience like?
It was weird because from a researcher point of view, it was both really empowering and, I felt like I had something to say, but I also had to say it quick because it wasn't like a weird part of research. Like, everybody was interested in this subject. So it was really, just really interesting to be able to share this research as everyone was experiencing it. So yeah, that was a good point. It also allowed me to squeeze a lot of presentation, explaining how it works, because everybody was kind of understanding how it works. So Zoom began to be like my go-to tool to experience and talk about my research with other people. But yeah, it's also weird right now because people are fed up with Zoom also, like, because we had too much of it. Like, when I'm coming back with this film, like Dear Hacker, which is just faces discussing on Zoom, people were first like very interested in this kind of exploration, then totally bored with it and kind of, disgusted with coming back to this aesthetic of online communication difficulties. And now it's coming back. I feel like now we have some distance with the whole experience, and we're trying to understand what happened to us a couple of years ago. So it's interesting to see how as a large group experiencing this, forced to experience this kind of being togetherness.
That's really fascinating and so relevant to Twisties, which I feel is this kind of disruption and empowering of like Zoom aesthetics and use, and how it's used. So to transition just to Twisties, I'm wondering, obviously folks may be familiar with it or will be able to watch clips and the performance and stuff like that. But when you describe Twisties, like, what is I have this project film called Twisties. What do you say it is? I'm curious kind of what how you describe it to someone.
It depends of the context and who you are, but here maybe I can say what deeply motivated me in doing Twisties. And it was just after COVID. So life was again, we were able to to go outside and everything. And I was still in front of my computer, kind of bored and not doing much. And I came across this polemic It was the Olympic Games of Tokyo, I think. And there was this gymnast, Simon Bills, the favorite and wonderful US gymnast, that decided to leave the competition because she said she had the experience, the terrible experience of Twisties. And so there was this small polemic that I, just followed by scrolling on different, it was so, like kind of late afternoon scrolling. And I came across this post from a dad saying that he watched again with his two daughters the double vault of Kerry Strug 20 years prior to Simon Bills. And Kerry apparently had the Twisties, but she went for it and decided to, I'm sorry, I didn't explain what the Twisties. So Simon Bills said she's leaving the competition because she has the Twisties. So I'm trying to research what is the Twisties, and the Twisties is a sensation of being lost in the air. And it's very dangerous and complicated for gymnasts to experience it, because then you're in the air, you have to know where you are. It's very complicated. And the polemic is comparing Simon Bills with Kerry Strug 20 years ago. Kerry Strug had a bad fall, but she vaulted again, she jumped again, despite the fall, and she succeeded in winning the US, the gold for the US team. So there is one part of the group, like, just validating the choice of Simon Bills, and another group saying that she could have done better. She could have done just like Kerry Strug did 20 years ago with the vault that she did despite her injury. So I was just like in front of my computer trying to, understand what was happening. And I don't know anything about the Olympic Games. I don't know anything about the gymnastic world, and I'm not into sports. I don't really care. But still, I'm always impressed and, kind of moved every time I watch like a sporting event. Like every time I come across like just any kind of random competition, I could get like, so tearing up and being just very engaged with the kind of video that is made from this group gathering and weird performance of humans' body, because it's I don't know why. And so I'm watching Kerry Strug, the video from 20 years ago. And when you're watching this these films where there's characters doing very intense moving with their body, you can get a sense of the muscle they're using, and having yourself kind of your muscle reacting, and you are very engaged with the image. Disinhibiting, is that working? Your mirror neurons, like you obviously you're a spectator, you're watching, so you don't have to perform, but still your body and your brain is kind of doing it with the character you're seeing on screen. So my PhD was also kind of in neuroscience, just a bit. So I got interested in the mirror neuron system, and feeling this, it made me also think about Linda Williams' film's Body. This kind of film that engaged your guts, like pornography, horror, melodrama. This kind of focus on your body. And it was quite interesting and very important just after COVID, because we were always online, forgetting about our bodies, and here it's kind of summoned by the image. So this is where Twisties began, because I was like, maybe I can actually do what she's doing. Like, can I disinhibit my mirror neurons to do it? So that was kind of the first impulse. And the second impulse was also linked to this kind of after COVID, scrolling, doom scrolling of late afternoon, being why? Like, why are we doing what we're doing? Like, what is this all about as humans? Why are we performing? Like, why is this body being upside down in the air and everybody is watching it and feeling so intense about it? And myself, I've just done my PhD. I did everything right, but for who? For what? Like, this kind of existential crisis, and the way the identification process can work with this figure of the Olympic Games. So I began to think about this through an embedded methodology, the embedding of the image allowed by Zoom, and from a narrative point of view, like the aesthetic of the Olympic Games, how the stories are told through this grand event, and how does it work? Like, how does the image work from a political and sociological point of view, but also an aesthetical point of view? Because so working on Twisties, I tried to map out the image in my own space as a spectator. So yes, I'm embedded in the image. And so if I have to perform and follow the bodies on screen, I have to move away and close to the cami screen I'm using. The camera is directly put on the screen. And so you're able to just, mapping out a bidimensional image into your three-dimensional space of the spectator that you are. Is that clear? I'm not sure. My English is not so. It's kind of it has to warm up.
No, absolutely. So again, people have the chance to watch and look at this, but just to kind of set up the position, like it perform as Carrie Strug in a green morph suit and kind of use the Zoom technology to project the image onto yourself and kind of do that reenactment, as you just say. And that's one of the things that I felt as I was watching it, was this way of using many things, among other things, like kind of the Zoom technology to activate your kind of body in this physicality of, where you're becoming Carrie Strug, the image is becoming you, you're the image or the movement. You're also talking at the same time. And so I'm wondering, just from a body perspective for you, like, what was like the choreography like? And for you, when you perform it, is it slightly different each time? Do you kind of move in, like, are you kind of improvising a little bit? Like, what is that like for you? Because it's a work that obviously must change depending on the context, the space you're in, the mood you're in, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, because like, as I was telling you, the kind of late afternoon scrolling mode, so I began to experience with Zoom, but then it took a more written, I don't know how to say, a more written development. I began to work with Théophile Gay-Mazas, one of the artists I'm collaborating with. And so we began to, just write the story. So the Olympic Games video that we're using is slightly re-edited. We began to think with the green suit, as you said, and with different embedding techniques. And we also got rid of the Zoom at some point, even though you saw me using it during the conference we met at. But we did this with Théophile to allow me to not touch the computer at all. And he's in the background behind the public, and he's managing the different embedding techniques. So just to give some context on the different ways we can do it. And the choreography then absolutely change depending of the space and also depending on the webcam that I'm using, because depending of the angle, then I will have to move differently. As you said, it's absolutely a choreography of the image within our space. But then it's not just a dialogue between my body and the body of the athletes. It's a dialogue between our two cameras, or our two cami screen setup, our two systems of video. So this is also what I'm trying to shed light on when I'm moving, because it's kind of an burlesque kind of move that I'm doing, because I'm not an athlete. That's obvious. And I have trouble to perform the athlete that I'm following, and just following the image. And by doing this burlesque and absurd kind of mission of following the bodies or just commenting the bodies, I hope that I'm showing how the images work and how the dispositive that I'm using and exposing is working, how the embedding technique is also a dialogue, with two video systems. So it's quite complicated. Like, I have to actually train myself. I wasn't able to do it very well when we met at Lucerne, because the lights changed, and the space wasn't, I wasn't used to the space, so it changes. But everything's fine, because this is true, you know. I'm saying the truth. Like, I'm saying that I'm failing, and it's okay. Like, the only thing is showing how the dialogue can work. So yes, every time we do it, it's slightly different, especially because we have to do it sometimes in French, sometimes in English. So yeah, it's quite different, because Théophile is doing the French voice for the commentating of the, how do you say that, for the presentators. So yeah, we did some different developments with Théophile. One of them is really focused on the reaction video, because as you said, like, I'm commenting the video. Sometimes I'm trying to follow the athlete's body, and sometimes I'm just like presenting it, just like the weather presentation. And so we try to think, about this phenomenon of the reaction video, filming yourself in front of images, filming yourself within the image, and how to share a space between yourself as a spectator and the images, and how the reaction video is always already opening a third space, because there is your point of view on the image. So then watching a reaction video, you're always watching a distance between the face and the images. So it's kind of opening up a space. There is a choreography, because there is a space that is opened with the device, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And what is it like what has been your personal experience of being kind of the performer? And I mean that in as vague a terms as possible. Like, what has its impact been on you physically, scholarly, psychologically? like what has that been?
Yeah, you have to be very focused on being sure that you have something to say, because otherwise you're just in a full-on green suit. And yeah, so I can feel kind of goofy, but also I know what I want to show, and I feel like this way is really a way to show it. So this is one part of it. The second part, which is kind of weird again, is that when I'm embedded in the image and I'm becoming Carrie Strug, and Carrie Strug, I'm supporting her on my body, then I am her. Because I'm watching the image that is produced. I'm watching it as you're watching it as well in the audience. So of course I'm not her, but it's just like a costume. Like I have to identify with this body, and when she's up in the air, I'm in the air also. And I had some comments after the performance saying, like, asking me for how long do I do gym, like am I still doing gymnastic? What is my background in gymnastic? And I'm like, what? Like, of course I'm not a gymnast, and if I have ever done gymnastic, then I'm really bad at it. So but still the image is producing a confusion between the two bodies. And in a way, I have to not to believe, but to take on the body in some ways, and the audience has to take it, because the device is working this way. Like, if she's not on my body, then she doesn't exist in the space. So we're collaborating in order to have this hybrid of a body performing for the audience.
I certainly thought that you had some type of dance background. Do you not? Or
No.
I really did.
No. Actually, I'm really bad at it. And I had like this. We discussed about this with some colleagues during the workshop. When you're following someone else's body and you think you're doing the same thing because you're so drawn to the image of the other and so connected, and of course you don't question it, but you think that you're like just performing the same thing. And at some point you're watching yourself in the mirror and you see like you're here instead of there. And this is actually talking a lot about how we connect with each other, and the perception that we have of ourselves within the point of view of the other. You know what I mean? Like all this kind of projection and empathy process that we have when we connect with each other. But maybe this is a device that could be used for dancer to actually, learn some moves, but it's complicated because again, it's bidimensional and two-dimensional. It has to, the angle. It's really talking about the image and how we film, like angle, frames, and our bodies being taken and told within this frame.
Yeah. Well, it's as much an athletic endeavor as a artistic and scholarly one. So you are an athlete now. But I wanted to, you mentioned something earlier about maybe feeling, you said maybe you sometimes felt goofy or that you wanted to have something to say. I'm wondering how you think about humor in relation to this and making it, because it's obviously it's a funny premise at first, and then you also are being funny in throughout intentionally, but it's also very, very serious. You're talking about a serious subject. Kind of the discourse around Simone Biles in the US is obviously like very crucial, and she's treated incredibly unfairly often in the press and whatnot. But yet humor is, of course, very central to this. So how do you think about that while you're performing, but then also as maybe when you were conceiving the project and are working on it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. The humor is really, really important to me. Like I don't know how to offer something that is like I would feel bad if it's just deep. Like this isn't. I don't. I will try to present something that has some humor in it, and because humor is also a way to make things clear and to engage, sure, to engage the audience, absolutely, but also to make something I don't know, shine, like within the device, like it's funny because it works, and I love all the artists and researchers that I love are putting kind of a dimension, a humoristic dimension in their work. And I feel this is not just because we're drawn then to this work because it's easier. It's not that easier. It's just showing it differently in a more direct way. I feel what is at stake. And yeah, it doesn't prevent us to talk about very serious issues, as you were saying. Absolutely not. So yes, this is one of the key components that we were discussing with Théophile when we did the editing and the writing of the whole performance, is how not to do just a goofy, humoristic presentation approach of this complicated and very deep situation that we were exploring. And so we tried to do like begin with a very humoristic device and goofy approach, and then it's becoming more existential and deep and kind of, this process of the audience is drawn to the situation and kind of trapped, like, because you laughed, so now you have to find a place, like the image is shared by me and the athletes, but also by the audience. There is also the mirror between the audience of the Olympic Games and the audience of the performance that we're doing. And so everybody has to find a place within this ambiguous situation of judging the athletes. Is it a win or is it a fail? Like, and so you laughed. Did you, how do you, like, the first time we did it, like, people were laughing, and then how do you translate this? Laughing with some rire jaune, yellow laugh, we say in French.
Nervous laughter?
Yes, nervous laughing. Yeah. So you're laughing, it's goofy, and then you have nervous laugh, and then you're totally engaged in trying to understand what's at stake, and because you were vocal about your participation, then to me it's like a deeper sense of trying to find your place as a spectator of these images, this performance.
I'm not sure what your familiarity was with, like, that image, that the Carrie Struck image before, because I'm American and also grew up like watching sports, so it's like an image that I had seen a million times, and it's in montages, and it's like so American, and it's so like like this thing of empowerment or what have you. And it's also very dangerous, because it's like, even while I was watching your performance, I'm like, is Carrie Strug gonna land it this time? Like, it has that dramatics, which through the camera movement and the editing, and which kind of your work brings out. But just to kind of close here, because we're talking about kind of found footage and whatnot, like, what was your familiarity like with that image prior to the project, and how did you think about the associations that your audience might have with it as you were creating the work?
Yeah, this is really important. And I was not familiar with this kind of images, and I don't think the French audience is. Neither the Belgian audience, because we did a performance in Belgium. But the first time I did it was at the Columbia University in Paris, and the American audience was, really experiencing again this sequence from my point of view. So I could have I could appreciate it then how the images are received differently. But yeah, it is complicated because it's a geopolitical and ideological complex situation, and especially right now, like the US are against the Russia, and like you have, and it's after and it's the Cold War, and now it's the war with Russia and Ukraine, and so with this large scale spotting event, like bringing that right now, it's very ambiguous and deep in terms of geopolitical and ideological situation worldwide. I mean, yeah.
And then there's also this, right? Like it's just very interesting to see when you bring in that Simone Biles context, right? Like how that image changes in context, where with these broader conversations about mental health and kind of the treatment of athletes more generally, in particular Simone Biles, and like kind of the abuse that she and other gymnasts have faced, and all these different things, where it's like maybe it's okay that the Carrie Strug image has these positive associations, but does that mean everyone should have to do that again and again? Like, right? That's kind of what you're trying to raise. So you're also dealing with kind of just this incredible legacy that this image has had, and how it's changed over time, and you really problematize it. Is that a word? Problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The narratives are changing.
Yes. Well, Alice, we are here running out of time. I could ask you a million more questions, but everyone, please check out what will be below this video, information on Twisty, Alice's work, how you can support it, all of those things. Alice, thank you so much for
Thank
talking
you so
to me
much,
today.
Will. It was really nice. Thank you for your time and interest.